Life Audio.
Thank you for listening to Your Daily Bible Verse, the podcast that examines one verse each day to learn more about God and His will for our lives. I'm your host, Kyle Norman. After a brief message from one of our sponsors, we will continue with today's verse.
Did you know that Gen Z and millennials are leading the resurgence in church attendance? That's right. New research out from Glue and Barna as part of the State of the Church initiative shows that Gen Z and millennials are now attending church more regularly than older generations. This is a historic reversal in church trends. And Glue, spelled Gloo, is at the center of all of this. They're the technology platform for the faith ecosystem, connecting you with the latest research, technology, and values-aligned AI that supports churches, and ultimately, human flourishing. Glue is on a mission to serve those who serve, the pastors, leaders, publishers, and more in the faith ecosystem. That's high tech for a higher purpose. You can stay up to date with everything happening at Glue and across the entire faith ecosystem by texting JOIN to 46816. And when you text today, they'll send you the latest research from Glue and Barna about this historic church trend. Again, that's the word JOIN to 46816.
Americans have a big healthcare problem. Over 100 million citizens carry medical debt while paying for overpriced and complicated health insurance. As Christians, we don't have to pay for a broken system. Christian Healthcare Ministries is an alternative to health insurance at half the cost. Plus, you can enroll at any time. Stand up to health insurance with a biblical solution. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
Today's verse can be found in Luke chapter 18, verses 11 and 12. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed, "God, I thank you I am not like other people, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give tithes of all I get." In the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, Jesus puts forward two visions of how to draw near to God, imaged by these characters. Now today, we are used to the Pharisees being seen as the enemy of Jesus. This occurs often in the Gospels. They are the people that often stand in the way of Jesus' teaching and ministry. So pleased were they with their own sense of moral and spiritual superiority that they looked down on everyone else. But their spirituality was based on their own efforts and their own abilities. It was a works-based righteousness at its core. But we must always remember that for the original hearers of this parable, the Pharisee was the righteous person of the day. He was someone who knew the words of the law backwards and forwards, who had a pristine spiritual life. He was a person who was so righteous in his faithful observance to God that people strove to emulate his example. The tax collector, on the other hand, well, he was to be rejected. Tax collectors, particularly if they were Jewish, were hated because not only did they work for Rome, taking money from their own citizens to pay their occupiers, but they often charged extra in order to line their pockets. They were both traitors and thieves. But in this parable, Jesus reverses their roles. And he does so to address anybody who bases their life with God on their own efforts or their own perfect righteousness, and so looks down on everybody else. Do we ever do that? Do we ever assume that we can manage our spiritual life perfectly by our own efforts? Are we guilty of looking at other people disparagingly, even those in our own church or in another denomination? Is there an inner Pharisee that Jesus wants to address within us? The fact is, when we look at this Pharisee in the parable, we don't see faithfulness. we see egoism and pride. And sadly, such a spirit can invade the church so easily. Our spiritual life, which begins as a holy response to God's goodness, becomes twisted into exercises of our own self-mastery. It becomes easy to look at all the holy things that we do as somehow bolstering our status before God and above others. This is exactly what we see in the Pharisee. Right from the start, we see that something is not quite right. The Pharisee stands by himself. He doesn't join the community at worship. He doesn't enter the people of God. Rather, puffed up by his sense of faithful mastery, he stands by himself and he critiques others. God, I thank you, I'm not like other people. I'm not like the extortioners, the unjust, the adulterers, or even this tax collector. You know, the fact that this Pharisee mentions the tax collector, who is also in worship, makes me think that he is naming the other sins that he sees in the community. Oh, there's Frank, the extortioner. There's Beverly, the unjust. How much hateful pride do you need to have to look at the other people who join you in worship and completely dismiss them? How far must you be from God to deny God's grace and mercy for others? Of course, the Pharisee doesn't see this. He goes on, I give tithes of all I get, and I fast twice a week. Now, yes, those actions are good and holy. The Pharisee lives his faith life the way that he's called to. He obeys the law. He does the spiritual actions which are required of him. And there's no reason to think that he's lying. But he spends the entire time in worship thinking about himself, thinking about how better he is than other people and the expert way that he manages his life with God. But all of those spiritual actions are just empty gestures. What Jesus is saying in this parable is that this type of self-focused spirituality completely misses the mark, and in the end, it is devoid of the life that Jesus wants to invite us into. Jesus is clear at the end of the parable that it is the tax collector, not the righteous Pharisee, that goes home justified before God. So how do we address our inner Pharisee? How does Jesus call us away from a self-focused spiritual life? Well, we adopt a position of humility. Jesus invites us to come open-handed before him, to cast ourselves down before his presence in humble need. We are called to recognize that even on our best day, we are sinners in need of God's grace and mercy. As the old hymn reads, nothing to the Lord I bring, simply to the cross I cling. None of us earn our place before God. None of us are so good that we come to Jesus trusting in our own righteousness. But the beauty of the Lord is that no matter who we are, no matter what we have done, Jesus' love is extended to us all. And he invites us to experience grace, forgiveness, and new life.
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.